Okay, hi. It seems that one of our internet connections is out, and I just figured out how to get myself on here with our other connection, and hopefully I have enough juice. I wanted to sit in front of the new wall behind me. The trim and tiles are from Mexico, and the trim, my beloved tanner, our beloved tanner, did for us. And maybe over time we'll collect more tiles and put more tiles on the on the wall. My topic today is regarding. Good morning. Thank you. They're really fun. I got them in one of those strange and mysterious ways, so I like that kind of event. My topic today is exhaustion. And it doesn't sound like a very lively topic, but I think it is. And we may have the background of dogs and trucks and airplanes, but I really want to make exhaustion my topic today in a reframing way. So over the last week, I had my daughter's dog, Kevin, who has high anxiety. And I had a client coming in for an intensive, for a Your Emergent Self. And I am not familiar with anxiety the way a lot of people are until I had COVID. Thank you. Good. We'll do it together then. Lisa will do it together. Or Liza. But after I had COVID, I couldn't stop the anxiety that I had, and I took a homeopathic remedy, conium, which you up the doses on over time, not to cure the anxiety, but to go to the baseline of where the anxiety was happening. Now, when I say that, people think the event, like the traumatic event of our past. But no, it was systemic. It's good morning, Sylvie. It's where anxiety dwells in the human body that takes on its own life, regardless of what we psychologically explain it to be. So I don't know if anybody's noticed, but trying to explain where anxiety comes from doesn't seem to deal with the anxiety. So exhaustion and anxiety are pretty much one and the same, because anxiety is not a natural source of a human system. I was with Dr. Heather Hunt, DC, for a week. She's a cranial psychotherapist, naturopath, and just has a general framework of vitality medicine that, in the chapters we were writing, had a lot to do with what is going on with the human system and what might be missing. But I got to really play it out this week because I had an incredibly stressed dog who reacts in incredibly strong manners, not necessarily aggressive. He can be just as strong and look aggressive when he's playing as he does when 3 bicycles are going by and 2 dogs are trying to eat him. Same amount of strength in his body, same amount of charge, and I just kept listening to my thinking, and yet the trainer that I'm working with, she made this simple statement that I don't know whoever saw the Doris Day movie, Train Your Husband Like Your Dog, but it was very similar. Train my body like the dog. And what she said was, she said that once he wasn't anxious anymore, his behaviors of basically fright. He doesn't do freeze. He doesn't do fight, but he does lunge. He probably would fight. So he does do aggression, but not, I don't want to mistake him to be cruel. He's not at all. He's just a high protector and easily defensive. As well he plays hard, and we have a little dog here that's little body isn't quite designed to have a 60-pound dog land on him, especially trying to grab his feet with his jaw. But for Kevin, he doesn't know that's wrong, doesn't know jumping people is wrong. And so out of what the trainer said was that without anxiety, when the anxiety's gone, the actions are gone. That flabbergasted me. It just flabbergasted me. And then she began to talk to me about finding soothers for him. And I don't know, I always get her name wrong. I think it's Graydon is the first name. Somebody write it in the chat. But I remember Graydon Temple is part of her name. And I was fascinated by the book I read about. She's very, very intelligent, considered autistic, high-end, and she talks about how she learned how to soothe her body. So all of a sudden, the body, Temple Graydon, thank you, Heather. Hi, Heather. I just talked about you, I don't know if you were on. So all of a sudden, I had this new landscape for the dog, but also for me. And the first thing I had to tame was my thinking. It shouldn't be this way. Everything should go comfortably. Why can't he just calm down? But all of a sudden, it all changed. Why do I have so much on my plate? You know, all those things. The chat. But all of a sudden, they were diminished by a single focus. Stay soothed. Stay soothed. That, hi, Neve. It's good to see you again. It was so simple in its intimacy. It was so simple in its intimacy. And all these reflections started, like how I do my room. I should do a guided tour of my room, because I've got on the back of my door, I have a wall, mural on the door that's a tree with a light shining out of the bottom of it where you can travel to anywhere. I've got orange walls, orange, brown, red walls that look like clay, and I've got curtains that are images of mushrooms, gigantic mushrooms, and waterfalls, and so everything in my room, I call it my sacred space. I have rituals I do in there. I have things I handle in there. Same thing with my office. But I never thought they keep me soothed. They keep me not at the effect of the world around me, basically. So I discovered that Kevin So what happened is I took him for 4 days. I had a client, so I had no way to be in a training mode with him. I had no way to set up anything to train him. I just had to get he and I through the morning, through the afternoon, through the evening, in the best way possible. First of all, preparing for my client coming on Wednesday night and starting Thursday morning, but also to make sure that there was once this channel, I don't know if he's still around, but he used to, his name was Mafu, and he used to say, "Art thou even?" So all these compilations of thoughts happened in my noggin. Am I even? Can I stay even? What is the level of even I have to stay under under different circumstances? In the face of staying even, how do I soothe? How do I stay soothed if I think that I can't stay even? I hope this didn't sound silly, because actually I think it's incredible and profound, and it's a new way to go into self-training. And I think during these times, how many of you have noticed, I know a lot of us have really been taking a lot of supplements to have our immunity system boosted in case we get COVID, and also for some of us to recover from the after effects of COVID. How many of you stay walking and keep your systems distracted from the cacophony of a world gone mad? Morning, Electra. You know, it's like, and how many of us are noticing in our groups or our collectives, this could be one of them, that we're gaining information that we can apply that fits our times, fits our moment of time. So this conversation's on behalf of that. But the really cool thing I want to talk about is I put him on a leash because I couldn't handle him jumping on people. I couldn't manage it because it's that, that moment when you have 10,000 things to do and you have 5 minutes. And you have to do them all impeccably, and you're preparing for a client, and you're trying to get yourself dressed, and you're trying to get your supplements handled, and you're trying to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner handled, and you have and plus the dishes are dirty all over the sink, that kind of moment. And I could tell in my own head what could trigger me. I could pay attention to what could trigger me. And I will say this, with all the work we've done in the LOC Institute and with the creation exercises, it is mostly thoughts that trigger us. It is mostly thoughts that trigger a human being. It is actually not so much the circumstances, but the thoughts. So I could hear my should have gotten the dishes clean. I could hear the shit, I haven't washed the kitchen floor yet. I could hear all the trigger thoughts, which is a really important part of this conversation. I could hear all the trigger thoughts, and listening to one's thinking is probably one of the most skillful things a human being can do, in Tantra's opinion. Because if you listen to your thinking, you can choose whether to be triggered by it or not. You can choose to have it be real or not. And thoughts are connected to, maybe Heather will write it in the text. Thoughts are triggered by things like amygdala and hypothalamus. And boy, I tell you, once you've triggered those little suckers, the whole body starts responding. It's doomsday. It's just doomsday. And to the level you've sedated yourself with drugs or alcohol or sugar or food or hate or anything that suppresses the system, the phenomenon of the activity of what we're presently in is simply to become aware and knowledgeable and self-train. So I'm so grateful for Kevin, because Kevin can't help himself. He doesn't have a thought mechanism called, I need to soothe myself now. He relies on me for that. I'm not going to get emotional. He relies on me for that. And I want to be reliable. And in being reliable, I actually have to be reliable to myself too. And it's Keven, in case anybody wants to know. My daughter, if you ever read E. E. Cummings, if you ever read my daughter's text, she sounds like E. E. Cummings, the poet. She has her own relationship to spelling. But the important part is that it really mattered to me that this dog that has no choice, hyperstimulated, easily surprised, has fixed actions, that somehow I could figure out a way to keep him soothed long enough that those trigger mechanisms could fade, at least a few of them. And she was so clear about how you can't punish him or you can't even say no to him. Oh, thank you, C. And that's his full name. Well done. And how about that, Shakiris, because his butt wags all the time. But more than that, I didn't realize how much I overly stimulated myself in situations that I didn't even realize I was being overly stimulated, because I had the human point of view that I shouldn't be overstimulated by those situations. I was flabbergasted. It was like having a soother intelligence a soothe intelligence start to show up. Not a reduction of anxiety, because just the word anxiety makes you anxious, don't you think? Jesus, I mean, talk about a word that holds the vibration of itself. But how do I stay soothed? Seemed like loving kindness. It seemed like the joy of life. It seemed like the respect and intimacy of existence itself. And all these compilations of thoughts began to come together, which crowded out the thoughts about dealing with anxiety. It just crowded them out. So I don't know if it was 1 or 2 days, because the last 2 days are kind of a blur, because I was only, my narrow focus was I had Kevin on a leash, and I could tell it soothed him. And when he had his stimulus response, no choice, Pavlov dog reactions, I had something where I could at least stop it fast. But what I also noticed, even more powerfully, is I noticed how, the other thing the trainer said, which I got to tell you, it takes some self-training, that when we walk towards a bike, which drives him ape, when we walk towards a biker, the one without a motor, we tense up. And even subtly, he would pick up on it and know there was something for him to protect and defend himself or Liana or I or someone else. So I heard the bikes coming when I had him out for a walk. So I sat down. I knew he was going to have a strong reaction. And I'm going to get to that. Lisa, give me a minute. And I never pronounce Lisa. It's either Lisa or Liza. I have a terrible time with that word. I always pronounce it 2 separate ways, so I don't mean to offend. But I felt it coming. So I started singing. I just started singing this song that came to mind, and it had to do, I want to be where love is. I want you to show me. I want to go where love is. And I just kept singing it. And it actually warned the bikers, because we were around a bush. And when Kevin went ape, I just quietly kept singing it. I was singing, I have a loud mouth. I have a loud voice, so we can't say I was quiet. But I just kept singing it. I want to go where love is. I want you to show me. And I had my eyes closed, and I was holding on for dear life to Kevin with his choke collar and his muzzle on, going, wah, screaming bloody murder, dragging the ground in front of me, seeking to get at the bikes, my heels in, and then I got up and saw the dogs that were headed towards him, two big mothers, and 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 what triggered in my brain, which is so important to this conversation, is that because it was a holy shit moment, what triggered in my brain was, I want to be where love is. That's what triggered, and we have these 10 commandments. Maybe we should put them on Sacred Space for Rest and Courage. And Liz, you should post your lovely painting, your picture of it. But instantly I could feel the score. I could feel it scored, and so I was able to handle him, to drag him around me, so he was protected by my body. The man was able to get the two dogs under control before they ever got to us. And I had this distinct experience of I have choice. I have choice over how I be here now. And then after they left, I just started singing again. I sat back down, and he calmed almost immediately. It was like a switch just went off. And then he started licking my hand because you could tell he thought he'd done something wrong. So we went down the path that bikes can't go on, and I got him back to the car because then I learned this other thing. I'm so excited about the investigation of this. Dogs have something called shake it off. So when they are in high anxiety, they will, how they soothe themselves is they shake it off. So, obviously my adrenaline was running like a 5-alarm fire as I was walking back, and I was shaking. And I thought, oh my God, this isn't about I'm afraid, therefore I'm shaking. This is about my body's shaking it off. Can you see the recontextualization? I didn't try to recontextualize it. It was actually what the body was doing that I had misinterpreted, that I had a thinking about it that gave me access to be more stressed, not less stressed, is the point I want to make. And the funny thing is I wanted to get 4,000 steps in that morning, and because of the incident, and I wanted to get Kevin in the car where he would be soothed into his treats. And I didn't realize I got back to the car, I had left my phone back at the bench, or I'd lost it somewhere along the way. So I had to walk back to get my phone, which was 2,000 steps. And then I had to walk back. So by the time I got back to the car, I had 6,000 steps. You know, it was beautiful. It was just beautiful. He got in the car, and then he laid his head on my lap, and he lets you pet him, but he isn't like a dog that wants you to pet him all the time. And so I just petted him and cried, and we talked about the stress of the world and how hard it is for all of us right now. And how grateful I was to have him, because his problem was bigger than mine. And that if I could be there for him, and if I could learn how to be there for him on behalf of all life, I could learn how to be with anything under most circumstances. And but I see you all chatting. The one thing I don't want you to miss is don't get too mental about this. You know, methods and explanations about how to fix ourselves, they're not the core value. The core value is being in touch with the value of life and how we deserve. We deserve because we live, to live without anxiety. We deserve that. And I don't mean deserve like elitism or entitlement. Deserve because it's a birthright. Our whole biological mechanism is organized to keep us to have us be calm after stress. It's designed to take care of us in that manner. We're in a volatile planet. By her nature, she's volatile, but she's also kind, and she's also loving, and she's also beautiful. And we got to do this. We got to do it, even if we look like idiots. So I've been walking around with a dog on a leash in the house for at least one day, I think. One morning, if I remember correctly, I can't really remember too well right now, but I noticed how I had to learn how to hold it in such a manner that he didn't jerk and knock the drink out of my hand with the leash on my wrist. But it was the least of my concerns, because he was soothed by knowing where he knew where to be. He knew that with the leash he was by my side, and I shifted the framework of, because he's a high protector, especially Liana and I, and so then I just kept beaming to him, I'm your protector, I'm your protector, I'm your protector. Not to be aggressive towards anyone else or make anything else wrong, but to be in such a way that he felt safe and he felt soothed. And one of the things that you learn spiritually early on, and it's, again, I think it has too shallow roots for the truth of it, is that when we worry, when we are in, worry is a source of anxiety, anger is a source of anxiety, fear is a source of anxiety. I mean, you all can list what the others are. Fear of future is a source of anxiety. There's plenty to go around. But when you wake up in the morning to take care of life and not expect life to take care of you, especially in these circumstances we're presently in, if you wake up looking to take care of life, of which is you, but it's also the dog, it's also the plants, it's also the floor of the kitchen, which I have to buy knee pads so I can get down and scrub it, because my knees are bonier now than they were after 40-pound weight loss. Then it's a different, and Heather, I'm very curious about this, because I think it's the core part of the chapter, that anxiety is pent-up energy. So it looks like to me that if we are feeding in the activation, in the I Magi I did Wednesday, one of the things that was addressed is one of the principles of a human being. And the principles are that a human being feeds with their feelings, with their senses, like we feed. Hi, bee. I just had a bee light on my arm. I guess that was a omen. But we feed when we appreciate the moon. That's why people talk about gratitude and appreciation. But it becomes methodology, but it also has a good background to it, because it's when the human being is the only creature that exists that can appreciate something. It has that emotion. It has that ability to identify something in a particular way. Like I love our garden, our little teeny garden out here. You know, it has a way to appreciate things, and Ganesh, in a very particular manner. And in doing that, in being able to do that, you're literally releasing anxiety. Truthfully, you are, because anxiety is nothing more than pent-up energy. It is just, it's just pent-up energy. It's really important that we not only know the mechanics of the body, which is what, I mean, we have this chapter in Meta Body, Heather and I and Electra are working on, and I refuse to let it go out as a how-to chapter, as a information-only chapter. I have to find a way to give people direct access to their mind of creation, so the mind of creation takes over, and your innate capacity as a biological form to release stress through energy out, not through, as Myra wrote, not by running, which is what my daughter does, which kind of sometimes increases her need to keep running, but literally by energy out can be done through prana. It can be through loving my plants and my dragon and my home and my daughter's dog, and through appreciating I woke up the next morning and I didn't die during the night. But if you can think of it as energy out, it as literally releasing energy, it also feeds back. It is the feedback loop between you and creation. When you recognize, the stop and smell the roses phrase, when you recognize the beauty of the world you're in, not the beauty of circumstance, we may not have that for a while, but the beauty of the life of this planet and of the sweet moments of like when Kevin laid his head on my lap and I petted him for 20 minutes to let him know that everything was just perfect. Everything was just fine. That all was good. And there was no memory he needed to carry forward of what had occurred whatsoever. What would it be like to think those thoughts? Not think about what happened or think about what's happening in the body, but to think soothing thoughts. And when Heather was going through something, also a chapter in Meta Body, when she was, that she didn't expect, because she didn't really have anything that could look like a biological or circumstantial cause of anxiety, she really had to use thinking. She used thinking to soothe her mind. But the mental mind and the perception in the mental mind is where the amygdala and where the hippocampus are, and maybe some others I missed, hypothalamus and thalamus are. And so just simply soothing thoughts in the brain from a biological point of view calms down the hippocampus and the hypothalamus, because the hypothalamus deals with memories. So anytime you, like Kevin is at the effect of memories of aggression, memories of bicycles that harmed him, and he has no say except for having a different environment within which those things aren't triggered long enough that he forgets that his hypothalamus no longer carries that memory. Well, it's true for us too. And then the last thing I want to say is that there is something about exhaustion and anxiety that are woven together like a magic formula. And it was really interesting this morning because I only slept 4 hours last night. I had this thing they're monitoring that was stuck on my finger, and somehow I don't do well with something stuck on my finger with a bright green light flashing all night. And so I woke up after 4 hours, it was up a few hours, and went back to sleep. So I woke up exhausted and thought, geez, how am I going to make it through the day? Exhaustion isn't as strong for me as it was post-COVID, but it's so is even a little unnerving to have it back, so to speak, or have it again. And then I immediately went into, well, just stay soft, just soothe yourself. This exhaustion says, move slow, move carefully, don't hyperdrive your body, become meditative, which has always been one of my go-tos. Most of my life is meditative. How I walk, how I organize to get out the door, how I plan for an event, how I prepare to go to bed at night. I have that meditative, so above, so below, vertical alignment with this sense. Because when you soothe, when you get soothed, you're in a meta state. You're in a state that goes beyond the circumstances that are happening around you. You're no longer at the effect of the circumstances around you, or even the possible circumstances that may occur around you. And you actually feel this vertical shaft of something like light, but soft, like the warmth of the morning when it first hits the chill of the air. You begin to have these sentient registers, these biological registers, these in the dimensional realm. It'd be the first and second dimensional realms that the body existed within, that simply go back to the primordial moment of inception or conception of a human being, with all the activity within the body to take care of us, and to be able to recognize that we can actually generate a biological response. Just don't forget to listen to the body's capacity to respond to the actions that you've taken to trigger in its soothers, which is your parasympathetic nervous system. It's even your amygdala, because the amygdala is not just it isn't like the solar plexus. It can be reactive, fight or flight, screw it or kill it or freeze. The amygdala is what tells you that there's no danger. There's no danger for you to be anxious about. So if you're standing in your kitchen and you're looking around and there's no gigantic monster in there with foaming mouth, you can let the amygdala know that you're safe, you're good to go. But after a while, it will tell you, it's not energy in, energy out, like a hose that you turn off and on, or like sunset and sunrise. It's different. And I haven't quite got the language for it, and that's one reason I like to do Facebook Live, because I do much better language when I'm with people, because I'm reading the field within which human occurs. But it really has to do with this sense of the body intelligence. You don't soothe your body. You create a soothing effect in your actions, so the body can activate its soothers. It's really important to get that, because we have the body we're the ones that have hypercharged the amygdala and the hypothalamus. We're the ones that persist in anxiety-based memories. We're the ones that persist in the world's not a safe place to be. Our thought processes do. We don't mean to, but it never occurs to us that our thought processes are generating biochemical responses that the body gets worn out by. But so I think our self-training, if we so choose, is literally to see what physical actions, like for now. In fact, I picked up the leash this morning and I thought, I may just walk around with this leash, but then I could walk away with the memory of it, which is now in my hypothalamus. I know this may sound silly. It's not silly. It works. I have been operating as a cellular empath for 75 years. This stuff works. Giving your system what it needs, it then starts to support you. It's just the way it works. To keep forcing it to be anxious, forcing it to be on alert, that doesn't work. And it's a meta point. It's like the body's got to restore its function, and you have to restore your mind. But the body's more likely to respond to you soothing yourself than it is to be able to override your anxiety. when you've been programming it to be anxious since probably the day you were born. You didn't mean to. I'm not saying something's wrong with us. Nothing's wrong with us, except something's wrong. In other words, we didn't do anything. We were at the effect of a world we were born into. But what we do have the capacity for is to no longer be at the effect of that world. No longer be at the effect of our circumstances. To find, and the other thing I wanted to say is that after COVID, my auric field was actually quite thin. In other words, I was more hypersensitive than ever. And I still have days like that. But I noticed that if I just closed in and only was about making Kevin's and my breakfast, if I just closed in to just have it be to think the list of things that had to get done and just started clicking them off one by one, if I totally shut out the world around me, if I didn't let anything around me be a source of disruption, then I had enough energy. Then I had enough energy to deal with what I needed to deal with. And then when I was out of that high anxiety environment that I was in, then I could relax and enjoy driving to my client, and I could enjoy the day because I wasn't having to bring all my energy tied up inside against, my wrap it around my body tightly, so I had enough energy to do everything I needed to do till I was in an environment where I could relax, and then I had no exhaustion, and I wasn't worn out. I was completely ready for the day. So today, you're my soothers. I come on here and get to be with you, and we get to hang out, we get to talk about things, and we get to be very, very committed to making it through the next 6 or 7 years in a soothing kind of way. That's it is a synthesization. Very good word, Kristen. Yeah. She wrote, hearing synthesis. Soothing perhaps activates the synthesization our system requires to thrive. Yeah. And it activates our intelligence too. Anyway, I recommend Temple Grandin's book. I recommend purchase a sweet little pink or green leash and carry it around and pretend that your body is like Kevin's body and that you're committed to its soothing. Love you all. Do you like my wall? Isn't it lovely? I really like it. Take care.